All right, buckle up, true crime fans. We're diving headfirst into a case that's as chilling as it is puzzling. The disappearance of Elisa Lam.
A case that really grabs you by the throat, doesn't it? You've got this young woman vanishing into thin air, and the backdrop is this hotel with a seriously dark past.
Yeah, the Cecil Hotel. Talk about a place with a creepy vibe. But let's start with Elisa. Who was she?
Elisa Lam was a Canadian student, 21 years old. Like a lot of young people these days, she had a blog on Tumblr, Nouvelle Nouveau it was called, where she'd write about, her life and thoughts.
So a window into her world. That's got to be valuable for trying to understand what happened.
It is, especially because her blog post reveals she was dealing with some mental health challenges. Bipolar disorder, depression, stuff that she was pretty open about, actually.
Yeah, that adds another layer to this whole thing.
It does.
So it's January 2013, and Elisa decides to take a solo trip to California.
Yep. A classic kind of adventure. She took Amtrak, made a stop in San Diego before heading up to Los Angeles. And get this, she was in regular contact with her parents the whole time.
So no signs of trouble, no red flags.
Not really. And then she gets to the Cecil Hotel. And that's where things take a turn.
Okay, I gotta admit, the Cecil Hotel, I've heard the stories. It's got a reputation.
Oh, yeah, it does. This place is notorious. Suicides, deaths, even serial killers have stayed there.
No kidding, like infamous names.
Richard Ramirez, Night Stalker, Jack Unterweger. It's a place with some serious baggage.
So you've got Elisa, a young woman dealing with some personal struggles, walks into this hotel with a dark history on January 26th, and then...
Well, things get weird pretty quickly. She's put in a shared room at first. But her roommates, they start complaining about her behavior, saying it's odd.
Odd? How? Come on, spill the tea. What kind of odd are we talking about?
That's the thing. The details are a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
What we do know is that the hotel staff moved her to a private room because of these complaints.
So we've got Elisa alone in this creepy hotel. And then, poof, she's gone.
Last confirmed sighting outside the hotel was January 31st at a bookstore. The last bookstore.
Hold on, wait. So she's acting odd at the hotel, but then at the bookstore?
The owner there said she was totally normal, friendly, outgoing, which is strange, right?
Two totally different pictures of Elisa. Okay, so last sighting, January 31st. What happens next?
Same day, she misses her scheduled check-in with her parents. That's when the alarm bells really start going off.
And then the investigation kicks into high gear.
February 13th, the LAPD releases something that blows this case wide open. Security footage from the Cecil's elevator.
Yes. The infamous elevator footage. It's like Exhibit A in this whole mystery, grainy, creepy, and it's got everyone talking. What does it actually show?
It shows Elisa inside the elevator, but her behavior, it's not off. She's pushing all these buttons, stepping in and out of the elevator like she can't decide what she's doing, looking around like she's searching for someone.
I've seen it. It's unsettling, for sure. You get this feeling that something is really wrong.
Her body language, too, it's strange. It's like at some point she's talking to someone, but there's no one else there, and she's making these hand gestures.
Yeah, those gestures. It's like she's trying to tell us something, but we can't understand.
And the creepiest part, the elevator door, it stays open for way too long before finally closing. After Elisa steps out, that is.
It's waiting. So that's it. That's the last time Elisa is seen alive.
It is. But the story doesn't end there. Sadly, it gets a whole lot worse when her body is discovered weeks later.
Okay, hit me with it. Where was she found?
Get ready for this. Guests at the Cecil start complaining about their water. Low pressure, weird color coming out of the taps. So maintenance goes to check it out, and you know where they find her.
Don't tell me. In one of the water tanks.
Yeah, on the roof. Elisa's body submerged in one of the water tanks.
Wow. That is messed up. What did the scene look like?
Grim. Elisa was naked. Her clothes and belongings were floating there in the tank with her body. Grim. Elisa was naked. Her clothes and belongings were floating there in the tank with her body. But here's the strange thing. There were no signs of any, struggle or foul play.
No signs of a fight. Okay, so how did she even end up in a water tank on the roof? That's not exactly guest access, right?
That's a huge question. The rooftop, it was a restricted area. She would have had to get past a locked door with an alarm to even get up there, or maybe climb the fire escape, but that's not easy either.
Especially if she wasn't, in her right mind. And then those water tanks, they're massive, aren't they?
Yeah, heavy lids, difficult to open, let alone close from the inside. How Elisa got in there is a real head scratcher.
Okay, so we've got the disappearance, the strange behavior, the creepy elevator footage, and a body found in a water tank. What did the official investigation say? What was the conclusion?
The official ruling was accidental drowning. They thought maybe Elisa was having a bipolar episode, contributing to her erratic behavior. And the toxicology report, it showed she was on meds for bipolar disorder, but maybe not the right doses.
So her mental health could have been a major factor? But I've also read that people weren't happy with the investigation. What didn't sit right with them?
Yeah, there were definitely some criticisms. The biggest one was the time it took to find her body. Because of the decomposition, it was harder to get clear evidence.
I can see how that would lead to a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when you've got unanswered questions and creepy elevator footage? The internet goes wild.
Oh, yeah. The Elisa Lam case, that was like internet speculation central. People were dissecting everything, her blog post, every frame of that elevator video, trying to connect the dots, find some hidden meaning.
Oh, man. The rabbit holes you can fall down in the world of true crime.
Yeah.
What were some of the theories people came up with?
Well, some folks were convinced that Elisa's blog was full of, secret messages about what would happen to her, foreshadowing. But you got to remember, we're talking about someone's very personal writing here. It's easy to overanalyze and find patterns that might not even be there.
Right, you got to be careful about reading too much into things, especially when it's a tragic situation like this. People want answers. They want to make sense of it all. Any other theories that stand out?
One that really took off online involved a tuberculosis outbreak that was happening around the same time. The test for TB was called the Lam-Elisa test. Pure coincidence, of course, but the internet loves a good coincidence, especially when it involves names.
Classic case of connecting dots that aren't really there.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of speculation, but did any of these online theories actually hold water? Offer a plausible explanation?
Most of it was, reaching. But I will say the online community really went deep on the Cecil Hotel's past. They dug up old news articles, police reports, even stories from people who had stayed there. And it all painted a pretty dark picture.
So it wasn't just Elisa's case. This hotel had a history of bad stuff happening.
Yeah, the Cecil had this reputation like it was a magnet for tragedy, and that definitely played a role in how people viewed Elisa's disappearance. Made it easier to imagine something sinister happening there.
The hotel itself becomes part of the story, like a character almost.
And the media didn't help. The way they covered the case, the focus on the Cecil and its creepy history, it just amplified the mystery and the speculation.
Yeah, it's like the place itself became synonymous with the case. So back to Elisa and the evidence. We talked about the elevator video, but what about the lack of any signs of a struggle? No foul play. That's a big piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
Absolutely. If she didn't get into that water tank by herself, then someone else put her there. But if that's the case, how did they do it without leaving a trace? No signs of a fight, no forced entry?
Man, it's like trying to solve a riddle where half the pieces are missing. And that's got to be frustrating for anyone who likes true crime, right? We want those clear-cut answers.
It's what makes the Elisa Lam case so intriguing, though. It's this puzzle with missing pieces, a story without a clear ending. It forces you to sit with the uncertainty, weigh the evidence against all the theories.
Yeah, sometimes there are no easy answers. But that doesn't mean we stop looking, right?
Exactly. The pursuit of the truth, that's what drives us. Trying to figure out what happened, piece together the fragments of information we have.
Okay, we've gone deep on the details, the theories, the creepy elevator footage. We've talked about the Cecil Hotel and its role in shaping the narrative. But there's another big piece of the puzzle we haven't really unpacked. The official ruling of accidental drowning and how Elisa's mental health might fit into all of this.
You're right, that's an important part of the story. We need to take a closer look at bipolar disorder and how it might have influenced Elisa's actions in those final days.
Okay, so we've gone down the rabbit hole with the Elisa Lam case, all the twists and turns, the theories. But let's talk about something we can't ignore. Elisa's bipolar disorder. Could her mental health have played a role in her death?
It's definitely a factor to consider. Her blog posts, we talked about those, right? They give us some real insights into her struggles with bipolar and depression. You can see her trying to deal with it,
It's tough reading those posts, knowing how it all ended.
Yeah.
What kind of things was she writing about?
You can tell she was a smart, sensitive person, but she was clearly affected by her mental health. She wrote about feeling isolated, having trouble controlling her moods, just feeling overwhelmed by everything.
It's a good reminder that there's a real human being at the heart of this mystery, a person who was struggling.
Exactly. And bipolar disorder, it can show up in a lot of different ways. That weird behavior we see in the elevator video, that could be a sign of a manic episode or even, a psychotic break. These are serious mental states that can really mess with your perception and your actions.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. What exactly are we talking about with manic episodes and psychotic breaks, and how could they have affected Elisa?
Well, a manic episode. Think extreme highs. Lots of energy, racing thoughts, impulsive behavior. You might feel invincible. You might not need much sleep.
So you might do things you wouldn't normally do. Risky things.
Exactly. And then there's a psychotic break. That's even more intense. It's like you completely lose touch with reality. Hallucinations, delusions, you can't tell what's real and what's not.
Sounds pretty scary. So is it possible Elisa was going through one of these episodes at the Cecil Hotel?
It's definitely a theory that investigators looked at. Remember the toxicology report? She was on meds, but maybe the dosages weren't right. Or maybe the meds just weren't working as well as they should have.
Makes sense. But it's still hard to imagine someone, in that kind of vulnerable state ending up in a water tank on a rooftop. There are so many pieces missing from the puzzle.
That's the thing about this case. We're trying to reconstruct what happened based on limited information, and it's a really tragic situation. We might never know exactly what Elisa was thinking or feeling in those last moments.
It's like one of those mysteries that just stays with you. Maybe we'll never have all the answers.
It's true, but I think it's important to recognize that we don't always have all the answers. We can speculate, we can look at the evidence, but sometimes it's okay to acknowledge that we don't know for sure.
It's a good reminder that the human mind, especially when dealing with mental illness, is a complex thing.
It really is, and that's why it's so important to have compassion when we're talking about these cases. It's easy to get caught up in the mystery, the speculation, but we have to remember that there's a real person behind this story, a person who deserves our respect.
Well said. And it highlights how important it is to talk about mental health, to make sure people feel comfortable seeking help if they need it.
I agree. Elisa's story is a tragic example of how mental health can affect anyone, regardless of who they are or where they come from. We need to create a world where people feel supported and don't have to suffer in silence.
Man, this deep dive has taken us on a journey. We started with the details of Elisa's disappearance, that unsettling elevator footage. Then we explored all these theories, and now we're talking about bipolar disorder and the role of online sleuths.
It's been fascinating, hasn't it? The Elisa Lam case is like a puzzle with missing pieces, a story that hasn't been fully told. It keeps you thinking.
True crime always reminds us that the world is full of mysteries, and some of those mysteries might never be solved.
But it's the search for answers that keeps us coming back, the need to understand, to make sense of it all, even when it seems impossible.
And sometimes the biggest takeaway is realizing that there are no simple explanations, no neat endings.
You got it. We're left with this honking story, a life cut short, and a lot of unanswered questions. But it's important to remember to approach these cases with compassion and respect for Elisa and everyone involved.
Well, to all our true crime fans out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. The Elisa Lam case. It's a reminder that sometimes the truth is elusive. And sometimes the mysteries that stay with us the longest are the ones that don't have easy answers.
Stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and never stop searching for the truth. Because that's what true crime is all about, the journey, the exploration, even when it leads to more questions than answers.